So hello, welcome everybody to session 1 of our new webinar series, Did You Know? This webinar was designed to help educate and provide resources for our parents, our players, our coaches, captains, officials, tournament directors, everybody. So there are, of course, many different topics under the junior competition umbrella. So we hope to address a lot of these different topics throughout the year. So just to briefly go over the agenda, we'll do an introduction of the speakers for today. And then we will go into the Junior Council and what that is. We will go into how net generation applies to going into junior tournaments and the different tournament levels. We'll also go into rankings and ratings, and then we'll finish up by addressing any questions that are applicable to this presentation. So for today, my name is Beth. I am the Senior Manager of Junior Competition here at USTA NorCal. We also have Tommy Tu, who is the Manager of Junior Tournaments. We have Lonnie Ray Green, who is our Player Development Specialist. And we have Andrea Norman, who is our Chair of our Junior Council. So she will kick us off, but just as a reminder, we will have a Q&A tab at the very bottom of your screen that you can see. So if you have any questions throughout the evening and you want to submit them, go ahead and do so. We'll hold off on answering any of the questions until the end, just in case one of those questions get answered throughout the presentation. So again, submit the questions, and if we don't get to them at the end, we will do a follow-up to make sure everyone receives the answers, and we can kind of follow up with everyone anyway. So without further ado, Andrea.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you everybody who's joining us this evening and who might be listening to this at a later time. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to learn more about the way junior competition works in NorCal, and hopefully this webinar will help further that understanding. As Beth mentioned, I am the chair of the NorCal Junior Council. We are one of a number of committees of NorCal. We are appointed by our president. We do have a new president, and it's just started her term, Pam Sloan from Stockton area. She also gives each of the committees a charge, and the committee charge for us is to develop, promote, facilitate, and monitor competitive and training activities and opportunities. Think of that as, this is a very broad scope of the various topics that will be coming to the Junior Council. We have a couple key responsibilities. There are actually probably some more, but these are key ones. The decisions we make, they're intended to encourage and retain participation in our NorCal tournaments. This is the competitive structure of NorCal. And we're also charged with motivating and encouraging players of various abilities and backgrounds to develop to the highest competitive level possible. So just keep that in mind. That's what the role that we have. I believe my email address might be shared sometime later in the presentation, but I'm always open to receiving comments and your concerns, things we might be doing well. So please feel free at any time to reach out to me, as well as the NorCal staff. Kind of at the top, I'm going to sort of give you a 10,000 foot view of the structure in NorCal. And what I want to emphasize here is this isn't just NorCal structure. There is a unified nationwide junior tournament structure or competitive structure in the United States. And much of what you'll see in every single section looks the same. We start with the net generation products. These are the non-ranking events. They're your junior team tennis, the circuit events, the orange and green ball events, as well as the team challenge. That's tended for entry-level play, play that's competitive, but not raises to the level of someone who's interested in pursuing a ranking in NorCal. Once you get to that competitive space in your development or the player's development, there are 7 different ranking levels of tournaments. Within NorCal, you will see from level 3 to level 7. Above that are national tournaments, but those are the different types of tournaments that you'll see on our schedule. They're intended for intermediate to advanced level players. We have open tournaments at all levels to play where it's most convenient. So when you see open designation on the schedule, that means players from other sections can play, as well as our kids can go to other sections and play those tournaments. Nationally, we have one ranking point table. So when you earn points let's say at a Super Series tournament in NorCal, those same ranking points would be earned at that same type of tournament, no matter where you play in the country. Likewise, we have one national standings list that ranks all of the players based upon results that are taking place all over the country. But it is sortable so that you can see a player's placement where they stand in NorCal. In NorCal, we have incorporated level-based play. That's play that selects and flights and seeds players based upon their ratings. It is permitted in the new structure, so it allows us to sanction those Super Series and ratings round robin events, which you will also see. Another aspect, this is for the higher level player quota, which is a number of players that get accepted into USTA national championships. They're the level 1, the very highest event. That is all calculated the same way in every section. And then every section also has the same residency policy. So when you see that a tournament is closed, that means it is closed to residents of that section. For example, we have closed sectional championships. So at sectionals, only NorCal players play. One last note, despite this nationwide alignment of every section really having the same structure, there is still room for NorCal and all the other sections to make aspects of their structure unique. And we're going to be discussing some of that this evening.
Awesome. That was a really good high-level breakdown. We're going to kind of now go into how to get into junior tournaments for those who are kind of aging out. Before we get into that, I do want to give a quick reminder, since we have a few more people joining, you're able to submit questions while we're on this webinar through the Q&A feature. So if you have a question while we are live, go ahead and use that feature. If we don't have an answer, we can always get back to you in future webinars or as a follow-up. So don't hesitate, please submit all your questions for us. We will have time at the end also to address any questions submitted. So now you might be thinking you're new to the tournament space or you're not quite sure where to start. So just a quick overview of the junior pathway and the Net Generation PlayTracker. So junior tournaments are kind of part of this junior pathway that incorporates team challenges, junior team tennis, otherwise known as JTT, and junior circuit events. So team challenges, JTT, and junior circuit have yellow ball, but also red ball, orange, and green ball. Junior tournaments, which is the primary focus for our webinar today, is kind of at the upper level of this pathway. It's yellow ball events. So for those who are unfamiliar with all of this, all of these information and slide decks will be shared out with you and are available on our website. But for players under 10 years old, they will need to progress through the Net Generation PlayTracker and earn points from participating in team challenges, JTT, and junior circuits. So that is separate from junior tournaments, which we will continue to break down for you tonight. At a quick high level, the PlayTracker is a system for junior players aged 5 to 10, as well as their parents to track their progress through USTA competitive events. To graduate from the PlayTracker and play in the junior tournaments that we were talking about tonight, a player must be 11 years old or have enough points within the green ball space. We have some recommendations for ages to play at certain ball colors, but just be aware that players must be at least 5 years old to play in a competitive USTA program. There's obviously different areas and skill sets that kids can learn from at each ball level. So it's not a very linear pathway. You can kind of move between once you're ready to progress to the next level. So remember that, and it's really important to keep in mind that just because you're eligible for a level doesn't mean you have to move on. So make sure your players are moving on when they're ready. And at that point, they can progress into the yellow ball space and play in some junior tournaments. Now, if you would like more information on anything in the Net Generation areas, junior circuits, anything like that, you can head to USTA.com/NorCalYouthRec. And as you see here on the screen, it's a lot of resources for you to kind of take a deeper dive into all of those things as we're focusing more on the junior tournament side for tonight. So now handing it over to Tommy for the tournament levels.
All right, thanks, Lonnie. Good evening, everyone. First, I'll touch on the 3 levels of the national junior tournaments. So for level 1, there are the national championships, the Brewer Team Cup, which was formerly known as the National Spring Team Championships. And then we have the National Team Championships. This event is called the Battle of the Section. For level 2, there are national level 2 tournaments and the intersectional team tournaments. For these intersectional team tournaments, 2 or more USTA section work together to host it. For NorCal, we call it the Pacific Cup, and we work together with SoCal, Intermountain, and Pacific Northwest to host the event. For level 3, there are the national level 3 tournaments that are hosted throughout the year all over the country. And all of the events I mentioned above, with the exception of the intersectional team tournaments, are sanctioned by the National USA Junior Competition Committee. We do encourage our NorCal organization members to apply for these tournaments each year, but ultimately it's up to the USA Junior Competition Committee to decide where they want to place these tournaments. Once we make the slides available for the public, the button at the bottom of the slide will take you through to the national resource page, where you can find more information on all the national tournaments, the regulations, and also the rankings and more. Next slide. All right, so now let's go over the NorCal junior tournament levels. From all the tournament levels and types I'm about to mention, anything, like Andrea said, anything that's open means they are open to all players, regardless of their residency. And anything that's closed means it's only for players who are residents of USA NorCal. So for level 2, we have the Pacific Cup. As I mentioned on the previous slide, this is a team event where we work together with SoCal, Intermountain, and PNW to host it. And for this year in September, SoCal is going to be hosting the 12s, Intermountain, the 14s, NorCal, the 16s, and for the 18, it's going to be in Pacific Northwest. For level 3, we have the closed sectionals. There are 2 sectionals per year in NorCal, one in June with singles and doubles. And then we have the other one, which is usually in the fall, where singles and doubles are hosted separately. For level 4, we have the closed excellence, open super series, and the closed mixed dominant dual team tournament. We have 3 opens and 3 closed level 4 tournaments in NorCal each year. NorCal players can play in other open level 4 in the other section as well. For level 5, we have the championship tournament, the super series, and the closed doubles dominant dual team tournament. In NorCal, we can have up to 28 level 5 per year. And also for NorCal players can play in open level 5 in other section as well. For level 6, we have the open tournaments and open ratings round robin. For level 7, we have the challenger tournaments, and players can also play in the level 6 and level 7 across the country and other sections. Next slide. Now we'll go into a bit more details for each tournament level, starting with level 7. So these are challenger tournaments. They're one-day intermediate competition that offer singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. And the draw formats for these events are round robin, team formats, single elimination, which is for doubles only, and each player plays at least 3 matches, no more than 4 matches. If some tournament might offer more than 4 matches, those extra matches will not count for your rankings. The match formats for these events, for singles, it's one 6-game with a 7-point tiebreaker at 6-all. And for doubles, it varies depending on the event that you're playing in. So I'm only going to mention the single selection for all of these tournaments. The single selection process for level 7 is bottom up, which means that all players without standing will be selected first, and then any players after that would be selected from the bottom up of the most recently published national standing list of that division. And at the bottom is the regulation as a reference on where you can find more information on level 7. All right, level 6. These are open tournaments, and also we have ratings round robin for all ages. And these are 2 days intermediate competition with singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. The draw formats are round robin, feed-in championships, team formats, and single elimination for doubles only. Players play at least 2 matches and no more than 4 matches. Match formats, it varies depending on the event. and or where the player is in a draw. So for example, if you're in the main draw, you might have a different format compared to when you're in the constellation, which would usually have a shorter format. The single selection process for rating the round robin is top down by ITF World Tennis number, WTN. For all other tournaments, it's top down from the national standing list. And at the bottom is a reference of where you can find it in our NorCal Junior Tournament regulations. Level 5, championship tournaments, Super Series, dominant dual team tournaments. These events are up to 3 days, intermediate to advanced competition, and you will see it in singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. The draw formats can be feed-in championship, compass, single elimination for doubles only. And the match format, again, depends on the event and or where the player is in the draw. The single selection process for Super Series is top down by WTN. For the dominant dual team tournament, top down from both players combined standing from the national standing list. And all other tournaments, it's top down from the national standing list. And for those that are not familiar with the dominant dual team tournaments, it's an event where it's a team competition with 16 two-player teams for each division, and the teams compete in a compass draw. And each team match consists of 1 doubles and 2 singles. So the team with 2 wins out of 3 matches wins the team match and advances to the next draw. So think of it as a singles draw, but instead of 1 player playing another, it's 2 player playing 2 other players, and the number 1 plays the number 1, the number 2 plays the number 2, and then the doubles. All right, moving on to level 4. These are our excellence tournament, Super Series, and also the dominant dual team tournament. They're up to 4 days, advanced competition with singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. Draw formats can be feed-in championship, compass, single elimination for doubles only. And again, the match format varies depending on where you are in the draw and the event. The single selection process for the Super Series is top down by WTN. And for the dominant dual team, it's top down from combined standing. And all other tournaments, for the 12, it's top down from the national standing list. And for the 14, 16s, and 18, a portion of the selection will be based on national standing list, and a portion will be based on WTN. Level 3, these are our sectional tournaments, 2 days, advanced competition, singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. Draw formats are feed-in championship, compass, and single elimination for doubles only. Match format, again, vary depending on the event and where you are in the draw. And the single selection process is top down from the national standing list. All right, moving on to ranking. So for rankings, we use the national standing list, NSL. These lists are calculated using a player's best 6 singles and best 6 doubles results. 100% of your ranking points earned from your best 6 singles will be counted, but only 15% of your ranking points earned from doubles will be counted to make the total of your ranking points. And you can also receive bonus points for singles win against players with national standings from 1 to 500. And these bonus points are part of the rankings earned from the singles event and will also be included in the event if the event happens to be one of the players' best 6 results. So also you must have 1 on-court win in a division to have your name appear on this national standing list of that division. For points counting down, 100% of the results will count down in a younger age division if that player has an on-court win in that younger age division. And 20% of the results will count up to the next older age division. And this is regardless if you have an on-court win in the next older age division. If you like more information on the USTA ranking system or just the ranking points table, the 2 buttons at the bottom will provide you with more information. Now I'll pass it on to Andrea to dive deeper into the calculation of the best 6 results.
Thanks, Tommy. We thought it might be good to give an example of how the ranking calculation works. This is a sample. This is not a real player. This is a girls player who is eligible for the 12s. She's played a schedule of 12s, but she's also in the last month played 14s tournaments. So you'll see the darker gold are the 12s tournaments, and the yellow, the lighter color, are the girls tournaments, or the girls 14 tournaments. You'll see at the 12s, everything, all of her 12s results, this is the 12s points, count at 100%, and the 14s divisions results count down at 100%. So what the system will do is it will look at all of the different results. You could have 15, 20, 30, but only the best 6 will count. And what's important to realize as well is we aren't looking at the total points in the points per round, but there are also bonus points, so that when you've earned points in a tournament for making, say, like the semifinals, you might also have gotten some bonus points for beating a top 500 player. That is added together, and that determines whether or not a tournament is a part of your best 6. I wanted to point out in the first column, under girls 12 division points, there are 2 numbers that are in blue, the 162 and the 165. If you just looked at that column, it would look like the 165 is the best 6 result, and not the 162, because it's 3 more points. But once you add in the bonus points for that event, you'll see that the one that's the level 4 super series, it actually bumps it up to 320 points, and that becomes the top 6. It's also important to know that bonus points are attached to the event. So even though you might be earning bonus points in multiple events, unless they are part of your top 6 results, they won't count. That's a very common misunderstanding. So in the 12s divisions, you'll see in bold red, those would be the player's best 6 results. If you look over to the further right, this is how the system is looking at these same exact results, but for the 14s division national standings list. The 12s divisions are only counting up at 20%. So while you see, for example, that 162 that's in bold, in blue, it's only 32 points counting in the 12s divisions. So that when they do the calculation, it's a completely different set of 6 tournaments that are counting towards the singles portion of those points. Now, in the case of this player, they've only played 3 doubles tournaments or doubles events for the past 12 months. So all of them would be part of their best 6. But I do think this illustrates to you how important having the doubles results on your record is, because the combined singles and doubles ranking determines whether or not a player is selected or not into a tournament. So if you're contemplating whether or not it's worth your time to play doubles, I would just ask you to take that under consideration, because it does often make the difference as to whether or not a player perhaps gets accepted into a level 5 or a level 4 or a level 3.
Okay, after the breakdown of rankings, you might be wondering what the ITF World Tennis number is. So we'll kind of take a deeper dive into that, as well as the difference between your rating, which is the WTN, versus your ranking, which is what Andrew just broke down with your best 6. So overall, what is the ITF World Tennis number, which we will be referring to as the WTN most commonly? It's a global standard using a 40-to-1 scale. 40 is more on the beginner side, whereas 1 is an elite professional. You've noticed probably if you've clicked around through the different sites, once a player is rated high enough, it actually just labels them as pro zone. So those are players who are really high on the WTN with the low number. It's important to note players earn 1 rating number for singles and 1 for doubles. They can be completely different ratings, kind of like the one in the example here. The one for singles is at 22.2 and the doubles is in the 14s. The WTN is going to be used in over 200 nations, and the Intercollegiate Tennis Association just signed on to use the WTN in the college space. So they will be using WTN in their product lines going forward.
Some other things to note: all the results in your WTN are provided by national associations, which is what the USTA is for the US. The USTA provides results as far back as 2016. And keep in mind that your current match results will carry more weight on your rating than older results, but they're all on your record. So the more data available, basically the more matches that you have on there, the more accurate your rating will be. Ratings are published each Wednesday, so it's on a weekly schedule. And you'll notice in this example here, the WTN features a game zone, which is highlighted in blue on the singles number. And the game zone is a range of ratings for which either player in that range will have a 35 to 65% chance of winning the match. So in other words, a player playing somebody within their game zone is predicted to have a competitive match. You also notice next to the numbers a check mark. It's a little small, but a check mark indicates the confidence level of this rating. So there's a couple different colors. The gray check mark, like one seen here, is a low confidence rating. So this player hasn't played very many matches. The system recognizes that there is a rating, but there might be some discrepancy in it because they haven't played very many official matches. Once a player has enough matches under their belt, the rating will have a higher confidence level and the check mark will be blue instead of gray. It's also really important to remember your WTN rating is different than your USTA ranking, which we will go into in the next slide. And for those who are entering into the junior tournament space from junior circuits, green ball results will count towards your WTN as long as the player is at least 9 years of age. There are some exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, if you're 9 and you've been playing green ball, your results will count towards your WTN. So you might be wondering, what's the difference between your WTN versus your USTA ranking? Now, there's a lot of things on this slide that we don't really have to go into super big detail, but the most important one to help you remember is that your rating is made up from your match scores versus your ranking, which takes into consideration your match wins. So if you look at a USTA tournament, like Andrew is breaking down through best 6, for each round that you win and progress through a tournament, there's a certain number of points associated with that. So all of those points will combine to make your ranking. And the #1 ranking is completely relative to everybody else who has points. So the one who has the highest number of points is the #1 ranked player versus your WTN, which is more on a scale. So you can have the same WTN as somebody else, but it's very unlikely to have the exact same ranking as somebody else just by a ranking point system. They're both updated weekly on Wednesdays, but also your USTA ranking is on a rolling 12-month calendar. Versus the WTN, which will keep your results on file, but just have different weight values for more recent results. And each section will have its own method for seeding and selection using the WTN. So it's important if you are playing out of the section to kind of keep an eye on what they also are doing for their tournaments.
So I wanted to hop in here for a second and talk about how USTA NorCal is using WTN. Tommy mentioned it, and I mentioned it as well. We have 2 level-based type tournaments happening in our section. They're called Super Series and Ratings Round Robins. So why use ratings? A player develops when they have access to matches that they should win, meaning they go out there and this is a match that, they really should win on paper. Matches that they will likely lose, right? They're playing a player that is really known to be far better than them, and matches that should be highly competitive. And having a mix of those matches is extremely important in a player's development. Now, statistically, when you're playing a traditional tournament where the first round you have seeded players that, if they continue to win, won't play each other till later rounds. There are far fewer competitive matches early in the draw. They don't happen until later in the draw, or the players that lose earlier go into a consolation, and then those competitive matches happen later. The purpose of creating a level-based tournament is to create a scenario by which we're trying to maximize the opportunity for competitive matches. Now, we don't want to have that every single weekend, because then the players won't be having those matches that they likely will win or likely will lose, because those are different development experiences. But we wanted to have several opportunities during the year to have these opportunities to maximize that competitive play. So that's why we're doing it. And I mentioned before, we have 2 different types of events, and they're happening at 3 different levels. There's the Super Series at level 4 and 5. And when you have these Super Series at 4 and 5 happening at the same time, keep in mind, we get some criticism that we don't have enough draw spots at level 5. But when you have these weekends, when there's level 4s and 5s happening, the best 32 players are going to be playing that level 4, right? So there's an opportunity on those weekends for the players that might be struggling to get into level 5s. That's some real opportunity, because there will likely be some draw spot opportunity for you to get into a level 5 at that time. These are held in all age divisions, the 12s, 14s, 16s, and 18s. 32 players are selected every time we hold one of these, and they are flighted based on ratings, meaning the 8 very best players go in the top draw, the next best in the second draw, the next 8 in the third draw, and the last 8 in the fourth draw. And every player, provided there are no walkovers or buys, gets 3 rounds of play, and they're full best of 3 tiebreak set matches, which is, we don't have a whole lot of full 3 set matches in this section, mainly because we have to have 2-day tournaments. So these are opportunities to get in those kinds of matches during the year as well. The other kind of event we have, and there's been a tremendous amount of confusion related to ratings round robins, which has resulted in some very low numbers of entries in this type of tournament. So we really want to emphasize the value of these tournaments. Before COVID, they were actually the most popular tournaments we had on the schedule, with hundreds of players entering and being able to play at the same time. The source of the confusion is they are 18 and under division tournaments. You won't see them 12s, 14s, and 16s. You will only see them in 18s, okay? But please know that they are for players of all ages. Now, that might not make a lot of sense, but hopefully I'll explain to you why it does. We are flighting these players based upon their ratings into 4-player round robins. So the very best players, okay, will be in the top round robins, the weaker players in the middle, and the bottom players are in the lower ones. So players tend to have a higher rating the older they get. So if you're a 12-year-old, you will likely be grouped with players who are 11, 12, 13-ish, maybe 14, who all have the same level that you have. So don't have any consternation about entering this 18 and under event, because the event is designed for you if you are a 12-year-old. Okay, I want to emphasize that as much as I can. These events will give you 3 singles matches, and they play with the match tiebreak format, the 2 sets with a 10-point match tiebreak. And the players that are in a 4-player round robin, those 4 players are randomly paired into 2 doubles teams, and they play one doubles match. So you're getting 4 competitive matches on the weekend. So I really hope you, like I said, we're really concerned that not enough people are entering the ratings round robins, and we think it's because they don't fully understand the value and how popular they were at one point. So please consider taking a look at those when they fall on the schedule.
Awesome, thank you. And then just to kind of wrap up our ratings section, we'll share this out so you have easy access to all of these links. But just some helpful things to know. Quick links here include just the homepage for the World Tennis Number. It's worldtennisnumber.com. There's more resources there for you to get more familiar with this new rating system. We know it's been implemented in the last year, so you might not be as familiar with how it works and everything that goes into it. But there are a ton of resources online that we encourage you to check out. And if you have any questions, you can we have a couple emails on here as well. Another important link to keep note of is the USTA player search. You can look at personal player profiles as well as other people and kind of get a sense for what other WTNs are, and maybe even identify those in your game zone. There's also quick links on here for top 10 things to know and frequently asked questions, focusing on the ITF World Tennis Number. So if you have a question, check there first. There's likely an answer for it. And then if you really want to dive really deep, there are some webinars from the last year with some staff members and people more behind the scenes who are really knowledgeable about the WTN, how it works, what it's used for. So if you have the time, you can check out some of those webinars. If you have any questions or concerns regarding your WTN, if you see anything there, you can email worldtennisnumber@usta.com. And if you have incorrect match results on your WTN, please remember, USTA staff, we actually don't have access to this information. It is an ITF World Tennis number. So it is a global number. So if you see an incorrect match result, please contact your event director first. So it would be your tournament director, as they can review if maybe it was something on their end. If it's been more than 2 weeks since the completion of the event, so say you played in a tournament at the end of December and it's now mid-January, you don't see it on your profile and it's not showing up on your ratings, you can email customer care at USTA.com and include your player name, the USTA number, a link to that event page that you played in and are missing, as well as the division that you're in. Like I said, we don't have access to edit your USTA profile or your WTN. So unfortunately, we can point you in the right direction, but we don't have control over what your rating is and how it changes. So we'll share this out with you so you have all of these things available. They are great resources as you get a little bit more familiar with the ITF World Tennis number. So with that, I hand it back over to Beth.
Thank you, Lonnie. Go on to the next slide. So please bookmark this page that you see on here, USTA.com/NorCal Junior Competition. It's a pretty easy one to remember. So in case you ever, just need a quick resource, it includes a ton of helpful resources and information mentioned today, and also things like the NorCal and National Junior Tournament calendars. We get a lot of questions on those. So those are really great spreadsheets to bookmark because it has the whole year's calendar. We have rules on there, and we'll have registration links to future webinars and recordings such as this one that will live on this page. So explore it, feel free to check it out. And if you have questions or other things, we'll go into our contact information, but this is a great page to bookmark for future use. USTA NorCal Junior Competition Team. This is our team. After this call, we'll provide you with Andrea's contact info if you have any questions on for her and the Junior Council. We'll pass that on to you. If you need assistance with junior tournaments, you'd reach out to Tommy, who spoke earlier today. If you need assistance in the recreational youth space, junior circuits, team challenges, and under net generation on what Lonnie touched on today, you'd reach out to Chris Samuel. If you have a question about officials or sportsmanship, you can reach out to Chris Wilson. If you have questions on junior team tennis or tennis on campus, which is a college-based program, you can reach out to Trey and Macy. If you have any questions on player development, coach resources, or college resources, you can reach out to Lonnie. On to the next slide. Thank you, Lonnie. So we plan to utilize a link similar to this one. It's not active yet, but it'll look something like this that will live on our junior competition page, the USTA.com/NorCal Junior Competition. It'll live on that page, and at any time you can submit questions there, and we'll keep monitoring it. And as we kind of build out our webinar series for the year, we'll utilize some of those questions to build out those webinars. So when we have our next webinar, just like you signed up for today's webinar, you can submit questions that way too. So we'll have different ways for people to submit questions. We had one question that we wanted to address that may not have been touched on throughout this presentation. So the summarized question we received earlier is, how should I help my child prepare for high school team tennis? One of the best ways to get ready for high school team tennis is by participating in what we call junior team tennis, or JTT. These are leagues around the section, and we welcome all parents, coaches, volunteers, anyone that's looking to captain a team. You don't have to be a coach specifically to captain a team. And we have tons of information on that, and probably future webinars that will be dedicated to that. But we'll also send you the direct link for our junior team tennis page after this webinar, so you can have more information. But Tommy, if you can address the tournament side and how this parent could help their child prepare for team tennis or for high school tennis.
Sure. Thanks, Beth. So if your player is, if he or she hasn't played tournaments before, the best place to start would be the level 7, because it's a selection process from the bottom up. So if you don't have a ranking, you will be considered for selection first. So try those out first. If you have success for in those events, I would suggest playing in the level 6 and see how it goes. So the level 7 and the level 6 are for our intermediate players and anyone who is just beginning to play tennis. So try those levels out first, and if it's too easy, you can enter level 5 or even higher.
Thank you, Tommy. Going into our next question. Can you please explain how players are matched up in a draw? Is it totally randomized or are there any considerations given to UTR, etc.? And Andrea, if you would take that one, be great.
Sure. I actually just got this question about a week ago when I was helping run a tournament in Fairfield. So what happens when a draw is made? You have, let's take an example of a 32 player draw, right? First thing that is done is we determine what the seeds are, and NorCal has a policy for determining the seeds. UTR has nothing to do with anything in the NorCal junior tournament structure. Depending upon the level and the type of the tournament, some seeds can be selected or designated based upon their WTNs, but they are always ordered based upon their standing, okay? At the championship level, I'm just going to use a championship level tournament as an example. We have most of those, the 5, 6s, and 7s, they are all seeded based upon their the standing, okay? And the number of seeds is determined by a calculation. It's no more than 1 in 3, and the number has to be 2, 4, 8, 16, or 32. So we can't have, for example, 5 or 7 seeds. There is the regulations designate how many seeds we have. And the whole purpose of seeding is to ensure that players of recognized outstanding ability do not confront each other in the early rounds. It's not a predictor that someone's going to win the tournament. It's just to take that group of players and keep them from playing in the rounds early. Once those players have been decided, once those players are decided and you push the button to do the draw, basically what happens is, depending upon the number of seed, there are predetermined lines on which the seeds go. For example, the number 1 seed is always on the number 1 line. The number 2 seed is always on the very bottom of the draw. The number 3 and 4 seeds are randomly placed either on the top and the half of the draw on 2 designated lines. Then 5 through 8 are on 4 random lines. 9 through 16 are on 8 random lines. After that, everybody else is randomly placed in the draw. So oftentimes I'll get a question saying, gosh, why am I playing that? Why isn't the number 1 player in the draw playing the number 32 player in the draw? Well, that's not how it works. Once you've placed, let's say in this case, the 8 seeds in a draw of 32, all of the other players are randomly placed on lines, and it is all done by a computer program. Now, the only exception to this is something that we call avoidances. We'll often get emails from families saying, hey, Sally serve and Stephanie serve, they're sisters. I really want them in opposite halves of the draw. Unfortunately, we cannot put them in other separate halves of the draw. The most that a referee can do is do a setting to keep them from playing each other in the first round. So it's possible that if they were in adjacent brackets and they won, they could be playing in the second round, but we cannot manually move them to someplace else so that they don't play each other until a later round. So please don't ask the tournaments to do that, because they're not authorized to do so. The other thing that we can do is we can do a setting that keeps the same type of avoidance, a doubles team from playing each other in the first round. That not all tournament directors use that. Sometimes it's not even possible given the number of players and the other avoidances that might be happening, the siblings in the tournament. But basic answer, the seeds go on designated lines. Everybody else randomly goes in the draw.
Thank you, Andrea, for handling that one. Next question. Where does a player go if they want recommendations on which tournaments to play? And I will pass that on to Tommy.
Sure. I would suggest just emailing me, and then I'll try to reach out to the player or just ask the player or the parent more questions to see what experience this player has or where they've been playing, just so I can get kind of like an idea of where this player is to recommend where they're what level they should be playing on.
And if you saw on the previous slide, all of our contact information is on there. So again, Tommy oversees junior tournaments in the yellow ball space. So you can reach out to him if you have any questions on those recommendations. So Tommy, you can potentially answer this next one. How much control does the TD and referee have on acceptance into a tournament?
All of our yellow ball tournaments have a selection process, so they need to be followed through based on our regulations of the tournament, and the referee does not have any control over the acceptance process for our yellow ball tournaments.
And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, that page to bookmark, USTA.com/NorCal Junior Competition. I'll say it all day because it's a great page to bookmark, but it contains the link to our rules and regs. So if you ever have questions and aren't too sure about the acceptance or the selection process or all the things that we talked about tonight, it can be found on that webpage. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions, or Andrea, if you wanted to add to any of that.
Well, I'll kind of follow up a little bit. Tommy's correct. They have tournaments and referees have no control over who is selected. They also have no control over who is seeded. It's all a process. It's one of the things that Junior Council is responsible for, making the policies related to how players are selected and what criteria we use for seeding players. So there is no discretion. We try to make things as objective as humanly possible, in fairness to everyone involved.
I think we're getting those wonderful questions from a referee that we'll keep anonymous in there. But so the software, any comments on the software, Andrea, on that note of between the TD and referee?
Sure. In fact, I see that the question is, so has the software been fixed? Those of you that started playing, I mean, we're playing tournaments as we were coming out of COVID, you might have heard some grumbling from tournament directors and referees. There were a lot of problems with the software as it launched. I believe I've been involved with helping to identify a lot of those problems and help to find solutions for those problems. I believe the software we have today has the potential to be far better than Tennis Link ever was. And I do right now think it is quite good. A number of you probably are receiving text messages through the system and automated emails, something that Tennis Link could never do. So the communication, for example, when there's a rain delay, is so much better than it ever was if the tournaments are using the system properly. The bugs that were happening in draws early on are no longer happening. And we've had a real army of tournament directors and referees throughout the country that have been helping to improve the software, not just fixes, but also create improvements.
Thank you, Andrea. And we love to see a wide range of participants at our webinar. So officials, again, tournament directors, parents, coaches. We hope to have something for everyone. So if there aren't any other questions, and if we see any come through, we'll let you know as well. But we thank you to our speakers, Andrea as our Junior Council Chair, Tommy and Lonnie on the Junior Comp team. We're here to help, so please reach out to us. Again, contact information is on that slide before, and we will follow up with you guys with more information on some of the things mentioned or not mentioned, so you have it. And we'll reach out to you for future webinars so that you are able to see what else we have to offer in case you have more information. Again, if you have questions to submit, please do, and we look forward to tailoring more webinars to that. But thank you again for joining us, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to our speakers, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the next one.